Welcome to your Entrepreneur Resources Show. I'm super excited that you're here with me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Venice, your host, and here at Your Entrepreneur Resources, we discover the no-fluff action steps to help you avoid all the overwhelm and all the BS out there, connecting you with the right mentors, resources, and tools, helping you every step of the way on your entrepreneurial journey. We go live here twice a week, interviewing different entrepreneurs and experts on all areas of business. So make sure to join our Facebook group and look out for the events inside your Entrepreneur Resources page. You can find all the links in the description box. Today, I have a very special guest with me. It is Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Venice, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
I've been looking forward to this interview for the longest time, so I'm super excited. So Lisa founded Positively Productive Systems after a deeply overwhelming time in her own life, juggling multiple roles as a caregiver, wife, mother, and business owner. She healed herself and her family by decluttering and designing systems and wanted to help others do the same. And in this interview with Lisa, we'll be talking about how simplifying and being selective is key to a more productive and profitable business. So this is going to be awesome. I know it already. But before we dive in, I would love for Lisa to share more about your business and your journey with us. Start wherever you want to.
Okay, I'll see if I can wrap it up in a pretty large nutshell, but the why behind my business is so important, and that's something I think that we all need to reflect on is why we're doing what we're doing. And for me, it was that deeply overwhelming time in my life. I was caring for my mom who had Alzheimer's. I had my two children, like I was pregnant with them and had them, and so I had little babies and a mom, and it was absolutely overwhelm. It was survival mode, which I think, unfortunately, we all know to some extent. I'm sure we can all point to a time in our lives when we're in survival mode. And it gave me some life lessons to take with me. When I came out of that, I was like, what do I do next? And instead of saying, well, okay, let me do something else, let me add something else, I thought, no, let me clear a path, let me clear out, process everything, which of course gets into processing my grief and just figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. And asking those questions, I feel like we rarely ask ourselves. And it's so important to do so. And as I started to do this, it changed my family dynamic. It changed me. And I thought, I want to help others do this. And I started as a professional organizer. So I still help people with their surroundings, their environment. So important because our environment affects and reflects what's going on in our heads. But I also knew that it was head and heart that really, um, it's where everything stems from. And I knew that I wanted to help people as a coach sort through all of that, make sense of it, simplify it, because that's where you can finally breathe again, right? When everything's so complicated and there's so much and all the overwhelm, we're so stressed and we suffer and we don't end up achieving what we want to achieve. So that was my path to say, okay, clear out and clean up and organize the outside. No, wait, you can't do that without the inside. Let's start making sense of that. And the more that I did this, the more I was led toward multi-passionate entrepreneurs, probably because I am one myself. The people who just love so many things and want to help others and want to change the world, but are also trying to keep track of their own world. And that is the path, bumpy and very convoluted as it is for everyone, that led me here to talking to you today.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs that's listening right now is probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, I completely agree." Everyone's journey is different and, everyone has different paths, but at the same time, we all run into roadblocks. If you don't run into roadblocks, you're very lucky. I don't know how that's even possible, but there are going to be days it's a bit tough, and there's going to be times it's like, oh, I want to give up. Like, it's so
Mhm.
overwhelming. There's so many things going on, and there's like this guru telling you to do this thing. There's another guru telling you to do this other thing. And, at the end of the day, just like what you said, it's about tuning in and, not just the outside, but also the inside, like finding the right mindset. And, we're going to talk more about that, I'm sure. But
Mhm.
I think this is such an important topic, and I'm so glad we got you on this show to talk about it. Um, I do have a quick question. I'm really curious about this. What do you think are some of the like biggest challenges that entrepreneurs face? I know you touched on this a little bit already, but what are some of the biggest problems or the biggest roadblocks that entrepreneurs face when it comes to, like overcomplicating things or feeling overwhelmed?
Well, I think you touched upon it as well, and it's something that we definitely bonded over and wanting to talk about. And it's one of the reasons I love so much what you do with getting rid of the BS and getting very clear on what makes sense for you as an entrepreneur. And that's the fact that there's so much coming from the outside. And I can't remember where the phrase came from, but I absolutely love it. It's this idea that we have this tendency to outsource our thinking and outsource our decisions when really so
Mhm,
much of what we need to do for making change and creating a business and doing what we're doing is an inside job. So I think if
mhm,
anything, that's a huge roadblock for us that we're and that, it's the comparison thing. It's seeing so much. We have incredible information at our fingertips now, which is exciting, but also it's like, from Star Wars, it's like, it's a trap, you have to be so careful because it's exciting, especially when you're multi-passionate and you're like, woo, but it's that bright, shiny object thing. And it's the
mhm,
uh, other people telling you because other people get excited about what they do too. And oh, you have to
mhm,
try this and you have to try that. And if you say, I want to get organized in my business, if you post that on a social media post, you end up with a thread a mile long of people telling you Trello and Asana. And and
Oh
the
my
list goes on
gosh.
and on, right? And
Mhm,
and it's funny that you should ask this question. It's perfect that you should ask this question because that's part of what I wanted to do differently as a coach is say, wait,
mhm,
stop. Those are the modalities, those are the platforms, and they all have value, but not all of them are right for you. You have to match up your modalities. You have to match up your productivity techniques to you as a person, what you're trying to do as a business, how you work best, and all of that. So I think, yeah, that's like multiple answers in one. But I think that trap of outsourcing our
mhm,
decisions and our ideas too much without checking in inside, that's the
mhm.
biggest trap of all.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I feel like it's that fear of missing out, the FOMO, that is so huge
Yeah.
right now. Because, someone might be like, hey, this is the next big thing. We talked about it in terms of Clubhouse, but,
Yep.
this is the next big thing. Jump on it right now. Otherwise, you're going to miss out forever. And you're like, okay, no, I have to be on that. And then someone's like, okay, there's a new software. Check it out. It's like, okay, I'm going to go and spend another like $500, $1,000 on this new software that you really might not need. So that is really important, like knowing exactly what it is that would move your business forward. And instead of just being trapped in this hamster wheel of constantly buying new software, being, like distracted into new tools and new platforms. I think that's so important.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, you mentioned money, which is for sure because these can be an expense, but then time, which is also money,
Mhm,
and that being trapped in that learning curve. And that's a bit of advice that I offer is even as much as we want sometimes to upgrade our platforms and to do things. And it's not that it's not the right choice, but being intentional and very specific about when we plan to do that in our business. For example, watching the season of our business and picking a time when it's a little less busy that we could then
mhm,
introduce a new platform, finding the right time to introduce the right things. But I don't know, there's something that we get caught up in. And I say don't introduce a learning curve where one isn't needed.
Oh, I love that. Oh, absolutely. No, it is so important. I'm just like my brain is just like, "Whoa," like mind blown. I love that. I like that we talked about software because I think that's definitely one of the areas where people
Mm.
get confused, get overwhelmed, and just get lost. Do you have any tips on, like how do you choose the right software? I know you talked a little bit about that already, but like
Yeah.
any tips you could share about choosing that right software and kind of like putting blinders on and just ignoring all the other things that come your way?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And I want to take it back actually to sort of the professional organizing side of things because there's so much connection in these similar concepts. And one of the things that I say is that organizers, like when you go out to the Container Store or whatever and you get stuff, those don't organize, they contain. You're the one organizing. And it's the same thing with the platforms. The platforms aren't going to get you organized, they're not going to make you productive. You are going to do that. And your processes are much more important than the platform. So you can almost do what you need to do, at least in the beginning stages of a business. And it's going to depend upon the business, but generally speaking, you can do much of what you need to do on a multitude of platforms. And even to the point of like, oh my goodness, we have such fantastic free resources now, right? I mean, what we can do with a Gmail account and with like or Google account, I mean, that's incredible. You have spreadsheets and you have documents and you have a calendar and email and you
Mm-hmm.
have, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's number one, understanding that you can maximize almost any one of them. But in terms of the question you asked about, well, how do we choose? Some of it's knowing our personality and our tendencies. Think about how you have best worked before. Okay, I think it's Tony
Mm-hmm.
Robbins who says success leaves clues. I think this is a great idea that say, well, where did that make sense to me? Was I like a post-it note on the wall person, or do I really like my notes on my phone, or do I like, am I visual, for example? Do I really like to see it laid out and be able to move stuff around, or do I want lists, so then you can kind of sense, am I more of a spreadsheet person, or am I more of a post-it note on the wall person? And then you can start to see there are platforms that translate to that, and we're specifically done. You have Trello, which is more of a Kanban style, and you actually do have your cards that you can move back and forth, and it's really great for visual people. But then if you have people who are task heavy and have teams, they might be more inclined toward Asana. And then if you have people who are super visual and want to create, they might like to go on Notion. And sometimes you can still achieve these with like simpler platforms. Maybe you're a Luddite and technology is just not your thing, and everyone is like throwing out all these things, and I'm like, don't panic. You can, just have notes, good notes on your iPad, or you could just have notes on your phone or actual
Mm-hmm.
notebooks. I mean, people love bullet journals. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with pen to paper, especially if that's your vibe, if you really, really like that. And the key is, where are you going to put the information and how easy is it for you to do that? Because then you're not going to keep the habit going if it's like too much for you. If you're like, I have information, an idea, and I want to put it down, but then I have to click in Evernote and then I have to click in a binder and then a note. Wait, wait. By then, what's going to happen? The thought's gone. But if you're like,
Mm.
I'm going to carry one of those really cool bullet journals around and jot down notes, great. And then eventually you can transfer it to a platform. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that answers the question, but those are the things I would think about.
No, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I think that at the end of the day, like no matter, you know yourself the best. And just because
Yes.
someone on the internet, it's like, no, you should absolutely use a software instead of using pen and paper, or maybe your favorite marketer is saying that she's in love with this new planner that's just come out, and you're like, oh, but I never really like pen and paper, but she likes it, so I'm just gonna go and grab it. It's not gonna work for you. Maybe you can try it if your system is not working. So if what you're doing right now is not moving you forward, and you're feeling like there's something lacking, or there could be something better, then why not try it out? But if it's already working for you, there's no point trying to learn a new thing. Like, you're just wasting your time. I
Yeah.
feel like I really needed to hear this from you, like back maybe a few years ago, because there are so many people out there saying, "Hey, yeah, use Trello, use Asana." I tried everything. I was like, okay, I have to learn this new software because someone else out there is telling me that it's going to work. Okay, I have to, like, I don't care if it's going to take me like a few weeks to move everything over there. I did it, and then I was like, okay, this is not working. Like, this is not what I like. I prefer I'm 100% Google person. I use Google Docs, Google Sheets. I time block on my Google Calendar, so I don't
Great.
even do any. Yeah, I just like put in different like tasks I need to do inside my Google Calendar, and you can move it around, and it's so easy, and it's free.
I know.
I
Best
feel
price
like
ever.
yeah, right? A lot of the time, I feel like people think that you need to spend money to be in
Mm.
the game, and you really don't. Um, which brings me kind of to the next point, because I know we talked about this earlier through our Clubhouse chats, but courses and programs and ebooks. Oh my gosh, this is what your entrepreneur resource is all about. Like, let's just forget about most of the things out there. If you need to learn something, go and grab it. But, instead of being like, oh, there's a 27, 37, 47 like course out there, just hone in and just like know how to block out all those different distracting things. So, any tips or anything you have regarding how to kind of focus and hone in on the things that truly move you forward in your business?
So for starters, I mean, having, a platform like yours that already helps to filter, that's a great way to do that. Having an accountability buddy that where you like you check back and forth. But I think the real key is getting very clear on what your mission is, what your next goals in your business are, and therefore what the next steps are. Having filters, and I use this in a clutter kind of way, where I actually have something called the Simple System, and it's a framework for decluttering that works no matter the clutter. And you need to figure out what the filter is that helps you decide what belongs and what doesn't. And usually that's at least somewhat your mission for your business and your goals for that year. Frequently, I recommend people have some kind of word of the year or phrase or something, right? That allows a very high level kind of check in point to say, is this fitting with what I'm trying to achieve right now? Maybe your goal really needs to be right now to do things that are going to be income producing. And to be honest, with most entrepreneurs, if you're trying to have something other than a hobby, that's a big one. And we get distracted by all these, well, let me set up a new system and let me try this. And this is exciting. And I'm going to, connect with this person and collaborate. But is your funnel, and what I mean by that is really your customer path, working, consistent, and connecting you to people who are paying you for what you're doing? That's your focus. So when it comes to courses and information and learning, you have to ask, does this apply to me right now? And then make a choice. So that's your filter. Then you say, all right, uh, just in time learning is one of my favorite phrases, because it's like, do it when you need it. Like you said, if you don't need it right now, yeah, I know it's $27. I promise you, there will be another one that will come along for $27. And if you really, really think that this is kind of a someday, like there's something about it where you're like, I really like this person, it's a great opportunity, I want to have it on hand, then you can have your own system where you collect it and you set it to the side. The real key with any of this in terms of focus and productivity is not letting these extraneous things take up prime real estate in what you're doing, in your like apologies about that. Not letting it like stand in the way of whatever it is that you're doing, be in your calendar or in a particular drive where you are, working most of the time. Not letting it distract your brain and be a form of like procrastination from what you really need to do. Because when we're feeling unsure as like entrepreneurs, I get the sense that sometimes it's like, well, I'm not entirely sure I'm capable of what I'm doing, so I'm going to take another course, right?
That is so
right?
true. I feel like that's what happens. It's like when you're not really sure how to approach a certain thing, or maybe you're thinking, okay, I need to make more money. And
Yeah.
instead of, or like, any kind of goal really, I want to be more productive, or I want to like be better at goal setting. Instead of actually taking actions, we resolve to, okay, let me take a course, because maybe by taking this one course, it will make me go from A to Z in a second. But that's not true. Taking courses is not going to give you the actions. It's going to give you the path, but you
Mhm.
have to take the actions. So, yeah,
Yeah,
like,
even with coaching, although
mhm,
that can fast track you because, like, for example, if you work with me, I can help you match make, the productivity technique and what you want faster. But even then, you still have to take the action. You're so right.
absolutely. No, I completely agree. When it comes to, I know that you are very amazing at productivity and time management and all of that. I know that we're kind of jumping a little bit around at the moment, but any kind of productivity tips you have for us regarding, like setting goals, or, everyday life, and how to just kind of block out all those distractions and all the overwhelming factors around us?
Absolutely. Now, for starters, you'll always hear me say that the number one productivity tool we have is self awareness. So, you really
Oh,
do need to understand yourself first. So, that is, taking the fun quizzes and understanding that, you are more of an introvert, or that the way that you show up, you really need to collaborate and have an accountability buddy to show up your best, or that you need to have lists, but you can't time block in a way that feels constricted. You know what I mean? There are all these different elements to how we work best. The type of environment that you're in. What does your desk look like? And are you somewhere where you're constantly distracted by everything that's going on? You know, that's definitely important.
mhm.
From there, in general,
Wait,
for
sorry,
everyone.
sorry
Oh,
to just
okay.
cut in for a
Yeah,
moment there.
please do.
How do you take this, like, become self-aware? Because I have no idea, actually. This is such a great point. I'm so glad you brought this up. How
Yeah.
do you become aware of what kind of person, or what kind of like worker, or like how do you focus? Like, how do you become aware of what kind of person you are?
That is such a
Such
great
a big
question.
question.
Yeah, no, and it's a great question too, because that's probably the reason why many people are like, I still don't even know. So
Mhm,
there are two sides to this, or two pieces of it. One of them is that there are many quizzes out there. Some I often have, well, not even often, I all the time I do. It just depends on how I'm working with someone, where I will send links, and there's a bunch of free quizzes out there. I highly recommend the Four Tendencies quiz from Gretchen
mhm,
Rubin. And then there are a variety of ones. There's one called the Big Five, which kind of incorporates Myers Briggs, which is like I'm an ENFJ, for example. And then there's things that are done in the corporate world, like disc profiles. I incorporate all of those into my coaching, because the more that we understand some of these elements, and again, it's not canon. You know what I mean? It's not like absolutely, 100% who you are, but it helps you piece together and connect with why you've done things a certain way. Like, why, for example, everyone tells you you have to go out to a networking event in order to build your business. And you're like, I'm an introvert and that sounds horrible. And I would rather have a root canal right now. I'll sign the papers. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
understanding those preferences that you have and playing into them, as opposed to trying to, it's like finesse versus forcing. So
mhm.
one way you can do that is by, taking these quizzes and kind of and reading about them and reading about yourself and kind of these tendencies that you have. And then the other way is actually by tracking your productivity and your time, which is something I recommend. If someone comes to me and I'm wasting time, I'm procrastinating, I'm struggling, the first question I'm going to have for them, the first thing we're going to do is take inventory. Where's your time going? So that means you can put trackers like a rescue time, and there's a bunch of them. Toggle, I think, is one of them. There's a bunch of ways that you can track, even on your phone. Like most of the smartphones now have it built right into the system, where you can be like, oh, I was on Facebook that much. okay, you know what I mean? And so so you can kind of tell, so some of that is where you're spending your time and how you're getting distracted. Uh, you can also see, like, if you start paying attention, you create that awareness where you're like, from now on, you can do this. Walk away today and be like, okay, I'm going to see when I am most productive, when I feel the most energized. Oh,
Mhm,
circadian rhythm is another thing that I talk about with my
mhm.
clients, and it's even beyond, like, are you a night owl? Are you a morning person, a lark or whatever? It's sometimes you can feel like, well, if I have the day, and I go ahead and I do things, suddenly I'm like, it takes me a while, but I'm jazzed at 10 a.m. in the morning and I'm going. But by 2 o'clock, hand me a Snickers. I don't know. It's like, so as you start to have this awareness, and
Mhm,
you look for these things, you'll see the data. You'll see the
mhm.
signs. So those are a bunch of different ways. I know I gave you like a whole host of them, but there's probably something in there each and every one of us could walk away and try today, right?
Yeah, no, I think they're so great. I think also, you brought up something that I really want to emphasize on, like
Mhm.
knowing yourself, knowing when you're most productive. It's very important. And I've realized that, throughout the years and just like, talking to different people, that we have days where we feel like crap, and that's
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Like sometimes we feel like, I have this goal, I have these goals, I have these tasks I need to finish today. But to be honest, do you really need to finish those today? Even if you're feeling like, you're sick, or maybe emotionally you're feeling down, mentally, or even like physically, it could be anything. Um,
Yeah.
if you're putting yourself in that position where you feel like, okay, I have to do this, I have to, no matter what, like, you are just going to start hating your business, you're going to start hating whatever you're doing. um like, I know, a lot of the audience may probably female, and maybe you have your period, and I know that, our cycle, understanding your cycle is a big part of knowing how to, like, instead of forcing yourself to be in circumstances or situations where you are just dragging your feet and being like, oh, I really hate this right now. Just understanding your body, understanding your mental health, understanding your, like, what was the cicada?
Oh,
What was it?
circadian rhythm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
where you get your best sleep, what your sleep
Hmm.
window is. And that's so important. You're so right about the our menstrual cycle as well. And
Hmm.
there's so much. That's another thing I discuss with my female clients. I mean,
Hmm.
there is a way that you can, just like when you do, a seasonal planning with your business, if you happen to have seasons where it's busier, and then when it's
Hmm.
not as busy, you take the time to educate, you do the courses, then, get your certifications or whatever. The same idea each month is that that could be the time in which maybe you have your calendar open to most of your coffee chats, because that's
Hmm.
not as taxing on you. Or maybe that's when you're like, I don't want to talk to anybody, so you don't do that. I mean, that's where you start to get to know yourself. Sleep is another huge one, and all of that,
Hmm.
what you're talking about, you're so right. When it comes to being most productive, we need to prime our productivity, and that is through acknowledging what our bodies and our minds need. So, proper sleep, proper hydration, proper food. This whole idea of work, 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 and then, skip lunch. And, you know, that's, I mean, it's proven now. It's proven, it's debunked. What I should say is that it's proven that it doesn't work. So it's been debunked. So has
Right.
been multitasking. That's another story for another day. But it doesn't work. Sleep, lack of sleep. I mean, you're not only talking about you don't have the energy and you're going to really, really hate it, like you said. You're so right. But beyond that, I mean, there's a link to errors. We make more
Mm.
mistakes. And we've all experienced this, right? You push yourself and then you're
Yes.
like, I think I read that paragraph 3 times now. And then you're like, wait, how did I make that mistake? How did I miss that? Oh my God, we're in daylight savings time. I mean, we were talking about that earlier. And it's
Yeah,
like,
we were.
I mean, I've done
Mhm.
this. And part of that is because we push ourselves beyond our limits instead of honoring that we need to rest. And,
Mhm.
it's still it's still something that I have to practice. So keep in mind, this is a habit. It's a practice. It's something that I'm hoping if we keep having awareness, that we will keep trying, keep making tweaks. I had to do it myself. I had a deadline today of some copywriting, and I was
Mhm.
planning to get it done yesterday. Life had other plans, and I thought, I really need to get a proper night's sleep, and I'll set my alarm, and then I will hit the ground running. And I did, and I met my deadline, and it was much more, I don't know if I'd call it relaxing because it was meeting a deadline, but it just was much more doable than if I had pushed. And I think I did a better job as a result,
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know?
and there's also the no, I absolutely love that you brought that up. I think there's that glory, like it's kind of glorified that you're busy and that you're like,
Yes.
"Oh, I'm staying up late." You know, like when you're in high school or university, everyone's like, "Oh, I stayed up till 3 a.m. last night because I was studying or I was finishing an assignment." And it's kind of glorified, and it shouldn't be. It should
Yeah.
never be, right?
All-nighters. I pulled an all-nighter. Oh,
Yeah.
those suck. I don't care who you are. Yeah,
That is so
exactly.
true.
So the earlier
Mhm.
you can be like, "Yeah, I don't wanna do that," the better off you are. You're so right, and I call this the busy badge of honor, and I do
Mm,
think there is an identity that we've had with it where it's, well, if you're busy, that's a good thing, right? You know, and it means that you have things to do and that you're not lazy and that you're, you know, important or whatever. I mean, there's so many things that I think we can link to our identity that
mhm,
can actually trip us up when it comes to truly being productive. It's
mhm.
critical that we let go of that worry about, what we're identifying with. And I know that some people out there be like, why aren't you working today? And I'm like, because I'm doing it right.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing. We should all
Yeah.
strive to not be busy. That's the thing. Like, just
Yes.
I understand like movies and like TV shows, and oh, you got all these bosses, and like, yeah, I'm so busy. I'm not sleeping. I'm like, I got 2 hours of sleep every single day, and that's not what we should like try to be. We should be,
Yeah.
like outsourcing. We should be, like working smarter, not harder. I know this is like a huge quote these days. Um,
Yes.
instead of spinning the wheels and being like, yeah, I need to be constantly working because I'm moving my business forward. Is it really? Is it really moving your business forward? You need to take
That's a
care
good
of
question.
yourself. Like, you need to take care of yourself before anything else. Like, oh, so important.
So true. And that check-in that you're talking about is critical throughout all of this, is that there is trial and error. You are going to, grab new platforms and new technology and try it out and see if it fits. I mean, yeah, there's definitely trial and error. That's the name of the game. But if you stop and you think about some of these things and you do some research and collect the data and ask the questions, it makes it so much easier to choose. You think about when companies uh, want an applicant for a job. If they're like, if you're interested in this job, please apply. Versus if they're like, we want someone who has this degree and this experience, and we're looking for someone who's willing to work these hours and this kind of corporate culture, and they get really detailed. It's a different filtering system. You need to be doing the
Mhm.
same thing for your business and your productivity, right? And the good news is when you get that clear and you have a better filtering system, that trial and error is going to decrease. You're leveraging that knowledge to make even the trial and error much more efficient.
Absolutely. Yes, I love this so much. I feel like I can talk to you forever, but we do need to start wrapping up,
Yes.
unfortunately. But I know that you have a special gift for us. Do you mind sharing that a little bit?
I'd love to, and it was something that I wanted to mention, is that one of the first steps you can take when you have all the ideas and all the thoughts and you wanna make sense of them is to get them out of your brain and somewhere safe. And I have a worksheet called the Focus File, which is based on David Allen's, from Getting Things Done, his mind sweep. So brain dump, mind sweep, whatever you wanna call it. It's the idea of taking all of the things in your brain and putting them somewhere safe so that you can process it. And remember, this is not a to-do list, it's a to-choose list. You process it and you figure out what belongs where. And that worksheet is part of my free library. And I would love for you to go grab it and use it 5 minutes. it's pen to paper, but you can write it anywhere. Or honestly, you could use the worksheet as a guide and put the notes in your computer if you want. It does not matter how you want to do it, only that you do it and give your brain some space to work.
I 100% love every time I hear you say not a to-do list, it's a to-choose list. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Stop trying to like just clutter and do put all these things on your list and just to choose, like to choose list. 100%. I love this.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, do you mind sharing where people can connect with you on socials or your website?
Oh, I would love it. I would love for you to come check in with me. And of course, you can find out all the details you need to know, and maybe some you didn't. I don't know. At positivelyproductive.com. That's my website. And on Facebook, I'm at Positively Productive. I play the most on Instagram, and you will find cats and coffee and funny memes and ridiculous things. And that's positively_Lisa. And the same thing, positively_Lisa over on Twitter, if you like to play there too.
Yay, awesome. Thank you again so much. Oh my gosh, you've given so many tips and so many action steps and strategies. For those of you that are listening, in case you want to get a summary of the interview, make sure to check out our show notes, which I'll link in the description box. Again, we've got our live interviews with experts here twice a week, so make sure to stay tuned and join our community on Facebook. You can find where to connect with Lisa, like her freebie and everything in the description box, so make sure to check that out as well. Thank you again for being here. I will chat with all of you very soon and have a great rest of your day.